Hey, I'm Isaiah Smith, you're a Monday Morning Sports Junkie, and you're listening to Waking Up with Thunder on WGUR 95.3 The Noise. Good morning, Milledgeville. This is Isaiah Smith, your Monday Morning Sports Junkie here, bright and early on October 17th, ready to talk with you guys for another week. Missed you guys last week. We did have fall break, so it was a good, relaxing time. Got to spend some time with the family and just have a good relaxing time and not really do too much. Watched a good bit of college football last weekend. Definitely a good weekend 2 weekends ago, actually. And then this past weekend was also very, very good as well. We got a big show planned for you guys today, though, just to jump in a little bit here and give you a preview of what we got coming, maybe this week and even in some coming weeks. The NBA starts in 8 days. Super excited for that. Really excited to see, the new look Warriors and, see some other teams with the new guys, new toys they've acquired in free agency. And then, college basketball right on the horizon. We've mentioned this, a few times earlier, but really looking forward to previewing some of that. And then you got in baseball, you got the championship series going on right now. I believe Cubs, Dodgers on the NL side, Indians, Blue Jays on the AL side. So that's really heating up as well. You got to get to see Clayton Kershaw. Got to see him last night. Borderline unhittable, and just a great effort for those Los Angeles Dodgers. They tied it up with the Cubs 1-1, I believe. And it should be fun. You got two aces for the Cubs. You got Jake Arrieta, John Lester, and then you get to turn around and see Kershaw, who they're going to get him on the baseball field as much as possible, I would think, given the dominance he showed over the course of this postseason and the regular season. So it should be a fun one, definitely, with how good these teams are, the weapons they have offensively as well as on the mound, and I think we're in for some quality baseball there. Then on the AL side, Indians, Blue Jays, rematch of the two cities we saw in the Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA, and it seems like the Indians, they've just been hot since the Cavs won it all, and I get maybe it's just they're riding the bandwagon there. They're trying to make the city of Cleveland proud, but they look pretty hot right now. And I don't know if there's anybody that can beat them. I think they definitely have a very good shot to win the whole thing. And how amazing would it be for the city of Cleveland to have not one but two champions in the same calendar year after going so long without a championship previously. And then back home, the Braves finally decided on a new manager, went with Brian Snitker. And, I think it was definitely the safe move. I think it was also good to bring Ron Washington along. He's going to be the third base coach. And, it's good to have him on the staff, a guy with some managerial experience, and he can help Brian Snitker along. And, I think the Braves were also very conservative and very smart with his contract. They didn't, sign him to an emotional deal and give him, 5 years and a ton of money. Conservative 1-year deal, club option for 2018. And, you bring on a guy who potentially could take his place if he doesn't work out in the next year or two. In Ron Washington, having Ron Washington on staff, in-house makes it, I guess, a little bit easier to hire him, and it makes it a pretty safe bet that he won't go elsewhere, at least for the next year or two. And, so overall, I like the move. He has a relationship with the players, coached a lot of them in AAA, and, really got to know a lot of them last year, some of the veterans. And, I think it's good to give the in-house guy a chance. He's obviously earned his shot, and he, gets a shot, going to have a shot to build this program, or build this team, rather, kind of, not necessarily from the ground up, but, pretty close to that. And, if it works out, awesome. And, it's just a great story. And if it doesn't, you still got your guy. I think you can move him back to AAA, where he succeeded. He obviously does a very good job at developing these young prospects. And so put him back there, keep him in the organization, and let him keep succeeding, I think. But, getting into the meat of the show here, big weekend last weekend in college football. Saw Alabama and Tennessee, spar last weekend, if you will. Ohio State, Wisconsin, a few big games that, that really, helped lay the landscape in this college football playoff picture. We've coming into this weekend, Tennessee was a playoff contender, Wisconsin a contender, several other teams who, went down this weekend were contenders before Saturday. So, going to recap a couple of games here before we have a special guest come on to do the last segment of college football. We have Mr. Collier Jackson. He'll be back with us, if you remember him from a few weeks ago when he was on the show. So, keep an eye out for that. He should be here in the next, 20 to 30 minutes. So, looking forward to getting to talk with him. We have some special stuff coming for you guys there. But, looking at Alabama and Tennessee, Alabama absolutely rolled over Tennessee. Tennessee just, they didn't roll over and play dead, but it was pretty close to that. And it wasn't that they were playing dead. I think Alabama just came out, and that's how good Alabama is. It speaks to their dominance. So, speaking of this Alabama group, turning the spotlight on them, I think, they're well on the way or have already, set themselves apart in that, here's everyone, if you're watching on Periscope, I'm going to talk my hands a little bit, here's everyone else, and then Alabama's somewhere over here. They're setting themselves apart, from everyone else, even the number 2 team, Ohio State. Ohio State's a very good football team. Michigan's a pretty good football team. Clemson's very good, but I think, Alabama's still better than all, the 3 of those teams and then really anyone else behind them. So I think they're doing that thing that, they always do where they set themselves apart, kind of in a different class around this time of the football season. But the defense is clearly very, very good. You have guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, Eddie Jackson. We've talked about them before on this show. If you remember, from this year or even in years past, last year, me and Kyle, we rave about Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think he's a great defensive back, great leader. Eddie Jackson, same type of player, great defensive back, great leader in that secondary. Then you have Jonathan Allen on the defensive line, Reuben Foster up there playing linebacker, Tim Williams. They anchor that front 7, if you will, and, it's very, very menacing. I don't know if there's anyone on that front 7 under 6'4", probably 325 pounds, and that's very, that's intimidating to walk up and look at as a quarterback or running back, anyone. So, they have length and athleticism on the outside. They're ball hawks. On the inside, they get after the passer. They pin their ears back. They're not scared to, play one-on-one, man-to-man on the outside with, little to no safety help on the back end. And, even though as scary as that defense sounds, the scariest part of this team is how good their offense has been. Normally Alabama, football team, you see them scoring, 21, 28, maybe 31, 34 points. They really, ground and pound, ground-oriented team. You don't see them, putting up points at the rate that this Alabama team does this year. But, Lane Kiffin's really done something with that offense. They don't have the bona fide, Heisman contender, solid running back in the backfield anymore, after Derrick Henry left. Guys like that have gone on to the NFL. But, they do have the young Jalen Hurts in the back. But, he's a heck of an offensive coordinator. I think he knows what he's doing on offense. Not sure about him in the head coaching position, but I know he knows what he's doing on offense. And, this offense, it shows, because this offense is totally different from last year's offense. If you look at last year, Jake Coker, traditional pro style, not very mobile, turn around, handed it off a ton. And then, Jalen Hurts, get the more mobile guy in there. They're using running back by committee, no true number 1 back. And, Jalen Hurts is helping to cover for this. He, uses, more read option type plays, design quarterback runs, really get him in space, get him, let him use his legs, which I think is his number 1 weapon. And, he and Lane Kiffin and, whatever they're doing has led Alabama to, the 7th ranked offense in the nation. They're getting about 45 a game. The defense is, absolutely stifling opponents. I'm not sure what the exact number for that is, but I'd say the defense is holding people around, 18, 20 points a game. And, Nick Saban probably hopes, wants that to come down even. But, they've scored as many defensive and special teams touchdowns as their defense has given up. So if you didn't catch that, their defense has given up 11 touchdowns, and their defense has also scored 11 touchdowns. So, thinking about that, last night it kind of, I was thinking about that, and it kind of, it's really like on offense, everything they're getting on offense is bonus. I mean, if your defense is scoring and matching what the other team does offensively, everything you get on offense is bonus. You should win every football game when you're playing that well. So, I mean, I don't know if they can keep that up. I don't know if they'll, I don't know if that's the goal or, anything like that. But if they can keep that up, there's no way anyone beats them this year, and they're going to win the national championship. That's clear cut, I think. If your defense and special team scores as many touchdowns as your defense allows, you're going to win the national championship. I think that's true at any level, even, high school, college, pro, any, Canadian football league even. If you do that, you'll probably win a national title, I think. So looking at the other sideline there, Butch Jones in Tennessee, their 2nd loss in a row after losing last weekend to Texas A&M. Can't say I'm unhappy about that, but, question is, can they bounce back? Are they still a contender? I don't think so. The A&M loss wasn't bad. And a lot of people said that, if, Tennessee comes out and beats Alabama, they've undone all the bad that, they did with the A&M loss plus some. But, Tennessee, they weren't going to beat Alabama with their usual style of play, which is go down early, try to come back. And that's not going to work. Bama is not the type of team that you can, go down, even 14 points, 14, 21, 28 points too early and expect to, be able to make a run late and, make a last-ditch effort to win the football game. Georgia, Appalachian State, A&M, they're all, pretty good football teams. We guess. We're not sure about UGA yet. We guess. But, they're just not on that level of Alabama that is just the dominance of when you get down, we take our foot and we stick it on your throat, and we do that for 60 minutes. So, really for Tennessee, I thought they had to start fast. They did not start fast, and I thought that was their demise right there. So, looking at Alabama's schedule, thinking about people who have a shot to beat them, A&M, maybe this new-look LSU team, maybe, but, even Auburn at the end of the season in the rivalry game. I think the one team out of that group that has the best shot would be A&M. I mean, they have the dynamic offense, John Chavis-led defense is improving, and, plus you can argue they have a quote-unquote Alabama killer in Trevor Knight, who can cement himself as the true Alabama killer, or Nick Saban's kryptonite, if he can pull off the upset this weekend. But, other than that, maybe the SEC championship game against whoever from the East, but I don't see that happening. I think once they get there, they'll be more locked in than ever, and, Saban's group will know that they're playing for a national title, or an opportunity to play for a national title, and that they won't, squander that. So I'm looking for this Alabama team to really run the table the rest of the way and be sitting, number one seed college football playoff come January. So moving forward here, Ohio State, Wisconsin. Ohio State escapes the Badgers in overtime. Looking at this game as a whole, kind of some takeaways. Wisconsin, they're not a bad team. I kind of discredited them earlier. Didn't know if they were as good as advertised after the win over a less than spectacular LSU team and a less than spectacular Michigan State as well. But Hornibrook, not a terrible quarterback. He did struggle some on earlier in the year, but once again, he's a true freshman, and he really has some promise in Paul Chryst's offense up there in Wisconsin. And then, Wisconsin, they're probably not a playoff contender anymore, obviously. Do have, I think, the 2 losses, but I think they're a legit threat to anyone who thinks they are a college football playoff team. I'm talking to you, Michigan. And, they'll probably be in a New Year's Six bowl, or, a pretty good bowl, but they're definitely the pleasant surprise of the year. I don't think they came in the season unranked, so obviously no one thought they would be in the position they're in now, a top 25 team, a team with some promise, a team that, doesn't always win pretty, as evidenced by the Georgia State win, but they get the job done. And I think, with the young quarterback, they'll improve, they'll get more pieces in, and I think this Wisconsin team will be a serious contender in the next couple years. And, also another takeaway from this game, you saw the championship-type toughness that you need from, a team that wants to win a national title. We saw that in Urban Meyer's Ohio State Buckeyes. They did what all good teams do en route to championships, and that's find a way to win. You have close calls on the way. Alabama will have a close call. Their close call may be 14 or 7 points or 3 points even, but they'll have one. And I think that this win cemented, Ohio State as a college football playoff contender. And I think JT Barrett leading the charge, and they're young at a lot of the skill positions and on defense, but I think they're ready. Urban Meyer's done a heck of a job with this team, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, what they do. Have Michigan and Michigan State on the back end of their schedule last 2 weeks. Michigan State trying to act like a little bit of a trap game, if you will. Got to go to Michigan State to play them, and then you got Michigan to close the year at home if you're Urban Meyer. So I'm looking forward to that. I do think Ohio State runs the table as well, and I think they end up in the college football playoff. And then final game I think we're going to cover here. I believe Collier is in the house, so I'm going to have to run out and get him real quick. But we're going to run through one more here. Clemson and NC State. Clemson escapes the North Carolina State Wolfpack in overtime. Clemson, I thought they dominated this one from kind of a statistical standpoint. By the eye test, outgained, NC State over 100 yards, had more first downs, but they were -2 in the turnover margin, and you can't do that. Gave up a pick 6 to start the second half, lost 3 fumbles. On the course of the day, Wayne Gallman went out with an injury, but that's not an excuse, obviously. But NC State's defense, they really stood up for the majority of this game. Gave them 2 shots to win it. Even the kicker missed 2 pretty routine field goals there later in the game, and the one at the end of regulation I thought was a backbreaker for NC State. That was their best shot to win it. And if you're Clemson, I think they knew how lucky they were to get out of this game with a win. When he missed the field goal, Dabo Swinney you look like he fell over on the field, and you could see the relief in his face, I think, and you could hear the relief in the crowd even, that they knew they were going to win that football game if it got to overtime, but there was so much uncertainty, and you can't have that when you're on the quest for a national title. Even though Ohio State was played close, I think they they were giving every ounce, and it was a close game, but Ohio State still felt like they were in control. Clemson, they had no control over the outcome of this football game. Ohio State knew, one stop here and we got it. Clemson let NC State drive down the football field and get in position for a field goal. Anything can happen on those kicks, obviously, but you've gotta control the football game. You can't leave it in the hands of a kick or even an official's call, as we saw yesterday with the Falcons. Don't want to leave it in the hands of an official either, because they're awful, but. Clemson just not as sharp offensively, I thought, even with the full arsenal. They're not consistent with their sharpness. They have been sharp. Look at the Boston College game. They have been sharp, but it's not consistent. I mean, Louisville even too. They were sharp in the Louisville game. Give or take a couple of plays, but. Not to take any credit away from NC State's defense. It stood up when it had to, made plays against Deshaun Watson, who's, a Heisman candidate clearly. And I think, begging the question here, is NC State still the favorite? Are they a true college football playoff contender? I think they're the favorite in the ACC still. They only have one more test at FSU, not this weekend, the following weekend. It'll be Halloween weekend. So, anything can happen then, as we know, at Georgia, Florida. But, Deshaun Watson's still a Heisman contender, not the favorite anymore, obviously. I don't think Clemson's the favorite to win it all either. But I think they're still a favorite in their conference. Watson's still, I think maybe the best player in that conference, give or take Lamar Jackson. They're definitely 1-2 or maybe even 1-1A. So, a lot to see from this Clemson team. If they, they got to go out and really look to stomp some teams in the face, kind of curb stomp some teams here down the stretch, just to show people that, hey, we're Clemson and we're not just playing off of last year's hype. We're for real. We can play football, and we're here to win some football games. So, definitely something to look for going forward. But I'm gonna take a quick break here. We have a couple songs coming for you guys here, and I'm gonna run out and get Collier, and we'll be back. And when he gets back, we may talk one more college football game, but we'll definitely be on to some Georgia football. So I hope you guys stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to what keeps the beat and keeps people on their feet on WGUR 95.3 The Noise.
What's up, guys? We're back. We have Collier Jackson in the studio. If you want to say what's up to everybody, Collier.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Hope you guys are having a great Monday already. I'm going to try to flip the camera and get Periscope right over here so you can see our beautiful faces this morning. But glad to have you in the studio this morning, Collier. We're going to... I was going to talk about that debacle that Georgia had on Saturday to Vanderbilt, but it's so bad. It's just same story, different week even. We're kind of beating a dead horse with that, I feel like, when you talk about Georgia football. What you see is what you get. We know what we're going to get even. And, the one thing I do want to ask you about, though, you were at the game on Saturday, right?
I was, yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Was there something different about the atmosphere on Saturday? It almost seemed like the atmosphere was not there on Saturday. Like, there, even though it was homecoming, you had plenty of reason to be up. It seemed like there was just almost no atmosphere.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing. I'd say people just weren't getting excited about it at all. It was very odd. I think the loudest cheer during the entire game was when Rodrigo Blankenship hit like a 46-yard field goal, and people absolutely lost their minds. Other than that, though, it was a very somber crowd. It was kind of lame, honestly. And to be honest, they didn't give us a whole lot to cheer for, but even at the beginning of the game, we still should have brought it. I think that opening kickoff just was kind of deafening, and we never really got into the game after that as a crowd.
I've been when it had before in Sanford Stadium, and when it was, rocking, and, last year against Georgia Southern, the thing was, about as close to sold out as it could be. I was there on G-Day when, Jacob Eason, that was, a packed house again, 93,000 plus. And, I've been there when it's been full and it's been rocking and people were excited. And, the Georgia Southern game last year shouldn't have been exciting, obviously. But it just felt like even on TV, watching it on TV, there was no atmosphere. And, as a fan, that kind of sucks, to be honest. But, you can't, as a team, I guess you can't let that bring you down. But, this was just an absolute debacle from Georgia, I think. There's no reason to lose this game. And then you have such a big one next weekend leading up to Florida. But, not to beat a dead horse, we're not going to rehash, what we already know about this Georgia team from the Vanderbilt loss. Instead, we're gonna grade the Dawgs. It's right past the midseason point. I think we're close to midseason, or right past it, I think. But overall, we're gonna give some grades out. I have a cool little graphic I'm gonna pop up after we finish this segment with the grades that I've given the team, and but overall we're gonna start off, Collier. Overall, what's your grade for this team's offense, and just kind of break it down by position, if you will.
Yeah, so I would say overall I'll give the offense as a whole about a B on the year. But by position, we'll go quarterback first. I give the quarterback group a B. Not like incredible, but about what you would expect from a true freshman quarterback who's playing in a new style of offense, something he's never played in before. He's played 7 games now at this level, and I guess only started less than that. But I've been pleased with Ethan's performance. You've seen flashes of brilliance, and you've also seen some lows, especially against South Carolina. But you've seen a lot of promise there, and I've been pleased, I guess you could say, with the quarterback performance thus far.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I'm going to give the offense overall, I'm going to say they're grade out around a B. But the quarterback grade, I'm going to go with a B there as well. You're going with a true freshman, like you said, so there's a learning curve that is to be expected, and I think it's clear that we found our quarterback in Athens for the next at least the next 2 seasons after this one, maybe 3. You never can tell. But I think this is a plus because I believe at least I expected Eason to have claimed the job by now, and he even claimed it a little bit earlier than I even maybe expected him to. I expected us to still be going with Grayson Lambert at times, maybe even to this point or up until last week even. But he still makes errors. Don't get me wrong, but the great fact about this, if you're a Georgia fan, is number one, he's young, he's learning, and he never seems to make the same mistake twice. The coaching staff has said that about him, and it's just something I've noticed about him. Watching the games, he definitely tries to improve. Each and every play, even every time the ball snapped on offense, he really looks to get better. So, definitely thinking that's a plus for this team, I guess, if there's a plus to having a true freshman quarterback. So, I'm looking forward. What about the running backs? Running backs expected to grade them out as an A. Coming into the season, but where do you have them standing now?
I only have the running backs as a B. It's been a little bit of a letdown because going into the year, you thought that was the one position Georgia wouldn't have to worry about, and you could really lean on them in the offense and not have to force Easton to throw more than maybe 30 times a game. But it's been disappointing to say the least. You thought that maybe the slow start on the running back position could be attributed to Chubb not being in there, but even since he's been back, he's looked good, but not the same guy he was a year ago. And maybe that's part of the offensive line's fault as well. But the running backs just haven't been as explosive. You saw a couple games where I think we've had a couple 100-yard rushers, but there's also been games where our best rusher had 80 yards, 70 yards. And this is a team that prides itself on being able to run the ball. At least in the past few years, that's been the case. And definitely a drop-off this year. You saw Easton have to throw 55 passes against Missouri to get the win, and that's unacceptable when you have Sony Michel and a few others in the backfield. I know we didn't have Chubb, but still, that's pretty ridiculous. So they've still been good, just not up to the standard that we normally hold them to.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with this group. Sometimes it's great. It's beautiful running the football. Look at South Carolina, North Carolina. Even looked good against Tennessee, I thought, running it. Didn't obviously get the win, but still looked pretty good running it over 100 yards. As a team, Sony Michel really ran the football well. Him and Brian Harrion did a great job. But, then other times we can't run the ball, and it seems like the more inferior the opponent, the more we struggle running the football. Did struggle against Ole Miss, did struggle against Mizzou, obviously. But, Vandy and Nicholls State, we should have been over 300 yards on the ground. Everybody plays. Could have got away with Easton throwing 10 passes in those games. We should have been able to, but we didn't. We really struggled, and with a young quarterback, you just can't do that, and that's been some of the downfall this year. It falls to the O-line a little, but at the same time, like you said, Nick Chubb doesn't seem to have the same intensity running the football that Sony Michel and Harrion have back there. So maybe he's not 100% physically, mentally, whatever the case is. But I think using this off week should be used to try and get him back in the rhythm, let him find the tempo of the game, and get back to doing what he knows how to do best. So definitely try to get him back on track, because he's such a good player, and he was a Heisman contender. He has the ability. We've seen him do it year in and year out. So it's just a matter of him putting it all together. I think here these last 6-7 games here down the stretch, and really just doing what he knows how to do. So looking forward here, got a couple more position groups on the offensive side of the ball. Tight ends. I'm gonna give the tight ends a B-. I think we've seen great stuff at times from the young tight ends. I thought they'd be a bigger factor early with Jeb Blazevich especially, but Isaac Nauta has stepped up, kind of become, he put me in the mind of Gronk a little bit in that last game with the big catch and run. Not the swiftest guy, but he's such a big physical guy, and he just, knows how to use his body, get open against zones, can, abuse smaller defenders, but quick enough to just run past bigger, slower defenders. And he's really coming into his own. But I've also been impressed with Charlie Warner, another freshman tight end from Rabun County. Has been quiet in the passing game, only caught a few passes this year, but he has done a great job up front, and one of the best run blockers I think we've had this year in a run game that's struggled. He does a lot of the dirty work, does things that no one else really wants to do. So I think once he gets a little older, gets more comfortable in the system, obviously, and learns, he'll be he might become the Lightning. He's a little bit smaller, a little more slender and quicker, but still has the size to play tight end, obviously. But he's a little quicker than Isaac Nauta. He may become the Lightning to Isaac Nauta's Thunder, and we can attack teams from maybe two angles with two great tight ends. But Collier, what have you seen from the tight ends this year?
So I actually give the tight ends a B+. I've been really, really surprised in how much we've been utilizing them. It's been really exciting. Bringing Chaney in, that was kind of expected, but the past few years, Georgia traditionally hasn't really used the tight ends that they have. They've mostly just been used for run blocking, or we'd bring them in on the goal line situations. But it's been cool to see Nauta really take off over the past 2-3 games in the passing game. Eason obviously trust him a lot. He's kind of been that security blanket that he looks for when things kind of break down in the pocket, and it's been good. I've been I'm really optimistic with this group going forward because, like you said, Charlie Warner and Nauta both true freshmen, and so got to get them in there for a few more years, and that'll be exciting. And it's just good to see them getting involved in the passing game because we haven't really seen that before. So I've been happy with that group for sure.
Yeah, definitely. One of the more pleasant surprises I think of the season. A couple more offensive position groups here, and we'll grab a quick break. The wide receivers. What have you seen from them? Obviously, it's not been pretty a lot of the year, but how do you grade them? And give us a little bit of a reason why.
Okay, so I gave the wide receivers a C. Been extremely disappointed with them. You see a lot of drops pretty much in every game, or at least catches that they should be able to make at this level. And I know Eason hasn't been perfect, and he can overthrow receivers at times, especially on the deep ball. But if the ball hits your hands, you got to help out your true freshman quarterback. And we've seen a lot of drops and just guys not being able to get open. We don't have a lot of elite bigger receivers, so that can kind of hurt our receiving core as a whole. We don't have that guy who can go deep and out jump a defender. But Isaiah McKenzie's been a bright spot, but even he's been a little inconsistent sometimes with catching the football. But I'd give that group just a C because they're really making Easton work for it. And just not really catching those 50-50 balls that receivers at this level should catch.
Yeah, definitely. I think me and Collier, it's like we did this together almost. But I think a C+ is almost. I give him a C+. I think I'm being very generous with that. You dropped several balls. I think in the Missouri game, something like 5% of all the passes that had been thrown to that point had been dropped. So that's just terrible. You got to be better. And I'm talking to Terry Godwin, Michael Chigbu, Reggie Davis, guys like that who have been around. And when I say this, and say this about guys, I don't mean it as they're bad players, but we don't have a number one receiver on our team. And when I say that, I don't think there is a team in the SEC who wouldn't want Isaiah McKenzie on their team. But when I say, they want him in the slot. They don't want him out wide, out on the numbers, competing with other teams' number one corners. They want him in the slot where he can get mismatches with safeties who, may not be as quick as him, or he can just run past them, or even with linebackers, or guys dropping off the line of scrimmage in coverage. That's a mismatch for him as well. So, and he's been our only consistent performer, and he's been having to play out wide and play as a number one, but he's not a true number one. And we really need guys who are big, physical playmakers on the outside who can just go up and abuse smaller corners. And guys who make 50-50 balls, either a catch for us or an incompletion, and there's no other option. It's not going to be an interception. But now I think our 50-50 balls are true 50-50 balls. You never know who's going to come down with it when Easton throws one like that. So, a lot of times our receivers are even smaller than some of the cornerbacks we face in the SEC, which is it's never a good option when that happens, obviously. With some of these teams going to these bigger corners, around 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", and we're playing with receivers, 5'10" on their best day. So the receivers have to be better. I thought they would be more promising. Terry Godwin's a guy that kind of disappointed me coming into the year. I thought in his second year he'd really bounce back and make a lot of plays for us, but he hasn't proven to be a playmaker. And then Jason Stanley, the transfer, the junior college transfer, thought he'd be a playmaker as well. Hasn't really materialized for us either. But on the bright side, I'm gonna go a little bit into recruiting here. Kirby Smart is looking to make amends there. I believe on the 2017 recruiting class we have a few receivers coming in, obviously, but I think they measure out at 6'3", 6'4", and I think another 6'3", and then we have they haven't committed yet, but I think we have a 6'5" and a 6'6" that have us listed in their top 3 or 4, I think. So helps on the way if you're Georgia, I think. But
yeah, and on the bright side, you could argue that our best deep threat big wide receiver has been Riley Ridley, who's also a true freshman. So,
that's very true.
Got some hope there.
Yeah, another pleasant surprise this year for me, actually. I've liked what he's done. I said he was going to be the X factor in the Tennessee game, and guess who caught the touchdown to put us up before we squandered that away. But we won't rehash that. Gonna move forward here. One last position group on offense, the offensive line. I graded them out as a C, and I think that's being generous again. And I've talked about this before on the show here. We're just talent deficient up front, and we're really average aside from guys like Brandon Kublana, the center, and Isaiah Wynn, one of the guards. And I'm upset with this group, but you can't be too upset with this group because the coaches say they're practicing hard and doing what they're supposed to do, and they're learning how to practice and how to prepare to win. But I think from a talent standpoint, they're just at that point. There's a point, like I've said before, I won't go into that again, but there's a point that you reach, as an athlete that's where your talent ends. That's as good as you can be. You're going 100% all you got. But that's just all you can do from a talent standpoint. I think that's the case with this group. They're just an average group talent-wise. But, would like to see more consistency. Wonder why that hasn't happened. But, we ran for 300-plus against South Carolina and then only 75 against a Vanderbilt group I don't think their defense is as good as South Carolina's. But, I think we've seen the best of this offensive line, and I'm excited to see for next year what's going to happen with that group. You have Ben Cleveland coming in, taking over for Tyler Catalina at the left tackle, and guys like that moving in, young guys take starting jobs. So I'm really excited for that. But Collier, what are you thinking about this offensive line?
Yeah, so I would grade the offensive line as the worst position group on the offense. I gave them a C. They've been pretty horrible. I would argue that the only reason we've been able to rush for so much in some of these games is because we're putting in the 2 tight end sets with a fullback back there as well. Just to try and open some sort of running lane for these running backs who also haven't been on top of their game. But you see Easton getting pressured against pretty much any team that has any sort of pass rush. They're getting to him maybe 10 times a game, and he's shifty enough that he can get out and avoid some hits. But the O-line has been a liability, I would say, thus far, and has shown some decent games that they can be a competent group. But it's like you said, we don't have the talent. We haven't had the recruiting classes bringing in these big offensive linemen over the past few years, and you're really seeing the repercussions now because these guys just aren't big enough, and they're just not talented enough. That's what it comes down to. It's not like they're not working hard enough, or it's not the coach's fault, I would say, but it definitely comes down to, I would say, Rick's recruiting in his past few years before he left was pretty horrible when it came to the O-line. So we're seeing the repercussions of that now.
Yeah, definitely. I've said before, if you're going to be mad at somebody about the personnel grouping of this team, go to Miami, get mad at Mark Richt, because Kirby Smart really, he kept a lot. He did a great job of keeping a lot of these guys we have here now. Jacob Eason, Isaac Nauta, Charlie Warner, guys like that who committed under Mark Richt, but wanted to stay and wanted to be at Georgia for Georgia, not because of Mark Richt. So Kirby Smart did a great job of coming in and retaining a lot of these guys. So if you want to be mad at somebody about the position grouping and the personnel, be mad at Mark Richt. It's his fault. He had the horrible 2013 recruiting class where everybody, except for a couple guys, either got kicked off or is in jail or some combination of the two. And and you just really can't recover there. Those guys would be this year's senior group, would be guys who should be stepping in, making plays as veterans, and they're not. They're elsewhere, to say the least. So we're going to take a quick break. We have the Eagles with Take It Easy coming at you guys, and we'll be right back to finish covering defense and special teams.
Pardon the interruption.
And now it's time for a word from our sponsors.
WGUR 95.3 The Noise is brought to you by Doodles Cupcake Bakery, located on 140 North Jefferson Street. In addition to its wide variety of cupcake flavors, Doodles is now offering casseroles along with a number of other tasty treats like lemon bars, caramel brownies, doodle bites, and cheese straws. Doodles is now open Tuesday through Thursday from 12 to 6 p.m. and on the first Friday of each month from 12 to 6 p.m.
Thank you again to all of our kind sponsors who keep us on the air. And now, here's some more music, only on WGUR 95.3 The Noise.
What's up, guys? We're back. This is around, let's see what the time is, about 8:15 here. Still talking some college football, talking Georgia football specifically, grading this team out, by position group, by, offense, defense, special teams here. And we'll hopefully have one big grade to give you guys at the end of the segment here. But still, checking out the defense here. We already did the offense. I think we graded the offense out around, what was it, a C, Collier?
Yeah, I think that's what the overall grade we gave.
Yeah, we gave a C. Overall defense. Where do you have this defense stacking up right now?
Defense, I've been happier with them than the offense. I'd give them a B, maybe a B minus, but you could argue a B for sure. I've been pleased. Like, if you look at the Vanderbilt game, we held them to 170 yards, which is what you would expect out of your defense. Really, the only scoring drives we gave up were when Vanderbilt ended up with the ball inside our 50 before the offensive even stepped on the field. So they did the best with what they are given most of the time. And really, the only game that I could say I was upset with the defense as a whole would be the Ole Miss game, where he gave up over 40 points. But for the most part, they've been pretty good. Not really missing a beat from where they were at the end of last year, so that's been pretty encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. The graduate transfer, Maurice Smith from Alabama, has been a pleasant surprise, I think, at the star position, and it kind of worked out in his favor. Rico McGraw, who played the star position last year in Jeremy Pruitt's defense as a true freshman, really, had some injuries in the offseason, back in the spring even, and, Maurice Smith just kind of stepped in, helped his defense not really miss a beat. Because, Pruitt and Kirby Smart really do run the same type of system on defense, if you will. So it was a pretty easy transition, so I'm pleased with the defense. I'm going to give them, about a B minus. Like you said, the only game I'm really disappointed in their effort was the Ole Miss game. And, even then, the secondary got torched up, but we weren't in bad position. I kept noticing we weren't in bad position. We just weren't making plays on the ball. We were, just keeping running with our head down, and then we'd see a guy catch it and just make a tackle, but it'd be 30, 40 yards down the field. So we weren't in bad position. We just weren't making plays on the ball, which is something that can be fixed, I think. I think that can easily be fixed. But going position group by position group, defensive line, a very thin group to start the year. We did get Jonathan Ledbetter back last week, but I graded this group out around a C. Like I said, they've been depleted a lot of the year. And like Collier was saying at the break, we don't have an upperclassman on our defensive line right now. So that just speaks volumes of what Mark Richt did in the 2013 to decimate this team. If you don't know about the 2013 recruiting class, they're either like I said before, in jail or kicked off the team, or a new addition here. They followed a subpar defensive coordinator to Louisville. Some of our secondary did, which I'm not too sad to see those guys go after they lost the Auburn game collectively that year as freshmen. But like the O-line, this D-line group is a little average, I think. They're thin up front, but we do have some guys who are stepping up. Trent Thompson and guys like that are really going to step up. I think Jonathan Ledbetter is going to step up when he gets back as well and gets in the flow of things. He was really the scout team, MVP, they said, when he was out on suspension. So, and then we're going to have help. We're getting better up front in recruiting. Defensive end Robert Beal is coming back. Trent Thompson, like I said earlier, solid contributor. So I think if you want to know which line group is closer to competing and being dominant, I do think it is the defensive line, just because of the youth we have and the youth we're getting that's going to be quality depth going forward.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with the D-line. I gave him a C+, a little more generous than you, I guess, but I would say that things are looking much, much more optimistic things are looking a lot better for this group than the O-line going forward. O-line has a pretty bleak outlook, at least for right now. But the D-line's still very young. If you look on the depth chart, if we go 3 deep, there's only one upperclassman on that depth chart. And so this is a young group that'll be around for a few more years. Some of these guys are true freshmen who are getting some solid reps in every game. And you see them not necessarily like getting to the passer a lot and actually hitting them, but they've definitely been a little disruptive in some games. Not by any means an imposing defensive line, but they've certainly been adequate most games, and a solid group, but definitely room for improvement. And I think we'll definitely see hopefully a jump next year or in the coming years from this group.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to where this team goes and how they improve. But, moving forward here, looking at another position group, the linebackers, I'm going to grade them out at a B-. I think they've been slightly better than the defensive line, but, not too much better, obviously. And, they haven't been bad. They are clearly missing Leonard Floyd and Jordan Jenkins and their leadership and Floyd's ability to rush the passer and Jordan Jenkins' ability to stop the run and really make plays there. But, Lorenzo Carter, we've seen flashes of what this kid can be. And, it's pretty good, I think. A lot of teams thought his motor was a question the past couple years he's been at Georgia. But Kirby, I think, has lit a fire under him. And, there have been some plays where I've questioned him, where I've said, he's not going all out. He still takes a couple plays off here and there. But, as far as that goes, it's a much more consistent effort, I think, from him. And he's looked a lot better. And then it's nice to see the young guys, Roquan Smith, Davin Bellamy, they make plays in the run. And Davin Bellamy was a playmaker for us last year. Roquan Smith didn't get much time on the field because he was behind Jordan Jenkins, I believe. But, Davin Bellamy, thought to be more of a pass rush specialist, has really improved in a lot of the run fits and things like that. So I'm very impressed there. And then Natrez Patrick, another guy I've been impressed with, a young linebacker who will probably be around for 2 more years, really does a good job stopping the run, helps us get after the passer as well. And so I think this linebacker group, the outlook for this group is kind of promising. It's looking up. I think they may be arguably the most promising group on this team, aside from the quarterbacks with, Jacob Eason. You got Jake Fromm coming in next year, and maybe a couple other big names there as well. So, aside from quarterbacks and running backs, obviously, at Georgia, but this may be the most promising group, and I think is the most promising group on the defense.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that statement by far. I gave them a B, and you could even argue a little higher. You could convince me maybe a B+. Just if you look at Lorenzo Carter, he has more sacks this year than he had the other 3 years combined. Natrez Patrick, Roquan Smith, David Bellamy, all true sophomores who have really stepped up. And if you look going forward, if you got 3 of your 4 linebackers are true sophomores right now, and they're all consistently playing well and having an impact, things can really, really improve. We could see them become the best part of our team, certainly the best part of our defense, I would think, next year and hopefully the year after if these guys stay around. But I'm extremely excited to see what they can do. A lot of them, this is their first year in the system. They didn't change a whole lot, but there definitely were some changes in the defensive scheme, and so it's exciting to see them play pretty well this year. I didn't really know if they were gonna be this good this year. I was really putting my hopes for next year, but they've definitely surprised me. I've been happy with that, and Natrez Patrick and Roquan Smith are like 2 players who have really surprised me on defense. Like I said, I was really hoping that it would click for them next year, and you've seen it already kind of start to click this year. I think David Bellamy was one of the most impactful players on Saturday in our game too. So it's exciting, and if you want a reason for optimism, that's definitely one to be looking at.
Yeah, definitely. Roquan Smith, if you remember, he, when Kyle and I did the show, we were on National Signing Day, actually, recapping a lot of that. And we were kind of disappointed that Roquan Smith, he committed to UCLA originally, and then UCLA's defensive coordinator, I believe, left, kind of a midnight hire, left for the NFL. And, Roquan Smith he hadn't signed the papers yet, and it was getting late. It was, we were in here late. I think it was 9:30 at night, and, reports are coming in saying Roquan Smith hasn't signed his commitment papers yet. He hasn't signed the papers yet. He's having second thoughts, and, we got excited about that, and the guy ended up flipping his commitment and heading to Georgia, a few weeks later. So that was awesome. Just a piece of a side note there. Something I remember from watching this guy and really seeing the impact that he's had. It's awesome to see that after we almost didn't have him. He was almost at UCLA. So just a great story there for us, I guess. But the secondary, Collier, looking at the back end of the defense. thought to be this team's strength this year coming in. Another group that I thought or a lot of people thought, I didn't think. A lot of people thought you could grade this group out as an A, so or maybe even A+. So where do you have them right now at the halfway point?
Yeah, so I got the secondary at the B as a B+. I would say they've probably been the best group so far. I really love the linebackers, but the secondary has been super consistent game in, game out. Really showing that last year wasn't a fluke when they were in the top 10 pass defenses. So you see guys like Dominic Sanders still making plays, showing his athleticism, just really getting those turnovers. Maybe not the same rate he did last year, but still being an impact player and having some of those game-changing moments. And then you've seen Quincy Mauger's still been good. Malcolm Parrish still been good. So, and then you've seen Maurice Smith come in and still have an impact. Had an incredible, you could argue, game-saving tip away, and so it's been good. It's definitely nice knowing that we're not gonna have quarterbacks just absolutely decimate our secondary. You know, we're gonna at least give them a good fight, and the only liability has been Briscoe so far. Just teams targeting him, but he's still been, he's been the one, I guess, bleak part of the secondary, but he's still been good. You can't say that he's been atrocious, but definitely the one area we can improve is on that second corner position.
Yeah, definitely. Dominic Sanders, like you said, I'm giving the secondary a B+. I think it's like we did this together almost, but Dominic Sanders, Quincy Mauger have been solid. Maurice Smith, a great addition. I think after having Rico McGraw have a couple injuries, letting him really get healthy. I look forward to seeing him in the second half of the year, though. I think he will find some time on the football field. Maybe even at that second corner position, because he can play over there. He has some good size and can really help over there. But Jawan Briscoe at times, like you said, has been a bit of a dumpster fire. And DeAndre Baker, he had his struggles at the beginning of the year, as had Aaron Davis, but they're really coming around. I think DeAndre Baker was hurt, got hurt before the Vandy game in practice that week, but he was really coming around. Kirby Smart was really excited about this kid and thought he was really making plays. And then once again, if you want to be mad about the personnel in this position group, look back to that 2013 recruiting class and go find Mark Richt and tell him about it. Because, you have two guys who would be starting defensive backs playing football at Louisville right now under, I believe, Todd Grantham. Is that the defense coordinator up there?
That's his name.
Yeah, under Todd Grantham. So, I don't think these guys really fit Kirby Smart's system anyway. They're a little smaller than he would like. But, still the depth there, the options would help. But also, in the secondary, you're lacking the physical type of players, I think, that Kirby Smart wants and needs to run his defense and for it to be successful. You need those long, athletic corners and safeties who are ball hawks, can come up and hit in the run game, and can also make plays in the passing game, can play one-on-one, can run. And, the examples I gave, Minka Fitzpatrick, defensive back from Alabama, plays a star position a good bit, 6'1", 201 pounds, can run, can make plays. Then Eddie Jackson, the strong safety, 6'1", 174, absolute ball hawk, does a little bit of everything for that team. And then you got, your other two starting corners, their corners stand at 6'3" and 6'4", the starting corners do. So no one in Alabama's starting secondary is under 6 foot. Let's just go ahead and make that clear. Most of Georgia's defensive backs are right at 6 foot. And on those stat sheets, everybody embellishes, obviously. So for Georgia, that means you're probably around 5'8", maybe not 5'8", but 5'9", 5'10", 5'11". You're not quite 6 foot. So
yeah, and if you look at the way the passing game's evolved, like you need these guys in the secondary who are over 6 foot. If you look at this, I know it's a little different because it's the NFL, but you look at the Legion of Boom with Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, and Richard Sherman. They're all over 6 foot tall, got a big reach, and you need these guys who are tall enough to keep up with the receivers that we have today, because you're seeing guys, maybe not on Georgia, but on most teams whose receivers are 6'3", 6'4", even 6'5", maybe, who are explosive, and you got to be able to run with them and be able to jump with them. And these guys are good, but it'd be nice to have some guys who are maybe 6'1" or 6'2", but you see a lot of guys 5'10", 5'11" on this UGA secondary.
Yeah, definitely. Like what Dan Quinn's doing with the Falcons even. Trufant and Alford are two solid corners, but I think Trufant is still a little bit smaller than fits the bill for Dan Quinn's scheme. Jalen Collins is more the type of guy he likes to have. Jalen Collins about 6'1", 6'2" out of LSU, and then looking at Keanu Neal standing about 6'2", 6'3" in the secondary, playing safety even. So two guys who really fit the mold there for Dan Quinn. But if you're looking at Georgia, we really only have two guys who fit the mold for the scheme at the start, and they both play the star position. That's Maurice Smith, who is the Alabama transfer, so clearly he should fit. And then Rico McGraw, and I've talked about him earlier. He was a freshman last year, played the star for Jeremy Pruitt, and really had a decent freshman year. I thought, really looking forward to seeing him, but had some injuries nagging, and so missed a good bit of the year. And Maurice Smith, his play has really prevented him from being on the field. But I'm looking forward to seeing him get on the field. But the secondary group, I still think they maybe been the best group all year, given their struggles against Ole Miss and a couple other games. I'm giving them a B+, like I said. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how they improve and seeing some new guys really get in there and lay the groundwork for Kirby Smart and Mel Tucker's defensive system. So we're gonna take one more quick break. We'll cover some special teams and give you our last bit of recap here and grade this team as a whole. Hopefully we're not too harsh here, but we're gonna take a quick break. We have some Kanye West coming at you, and we'll be right back.
You know what's better than listening to WGUR 95.3 The Noise? Well, whenever I figure that out, I'll let you know. In the meantime, stick around and listen to your heart's content. WGUR 95.3 The Noise.
What's up, guys? We're back here on WGUR 95.3. This is your Monday Morning Sports Junkie. I'm live in the studio with Collier Jackson here. We're finishing up our mid-season, our midterm grades, if you will, for Georgia football. We just got a midterms, so we're getting our grades out for Georgia football. Teachers, there's no excuse why you can't get yours back to us. So moving forward here, looking at special teams, the last facet of this team before we give an overall grade. As a whole, special teams, I'm going to give it a C. It's been, I'm going to say a little below average, but so a C may be a little generous, just after seeing what we saw this past weekend with Rodrigo Blankenship and him stepping up and making plays. But it's been hot garbage on the special teams for Georgia as a whole this year. I think I think we fielded 2 kickoffs near the sideline with 1 foot on the line or out of bounds. So there are teams who go 2 years and that doesn't happen. 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's probably never happened to Alabama since Nick Saban won his first national title. So what does that say about where we are as a special teams unit? We struggled in punt return. We've had guys dropping the football, obviously. Haven't been very, very good there. I thought special teams would be an asset for us since we hired, Shane Beamer, the son of Frank Beamer, who, if you know about Beamer ball, it's, special teams and defense and not much else, if you want to be completely honest there. But Shane Beamer is the special teams coach and tight ends coach. Done a great job with the tight ends. I'm not going to take that away from him. As we said earlier, Isaac Nauta, Charlie Warner, really involved in the passing game, doing a good job blocking. But special teams, he needs to pay a little more attention there. Maybe let Nauta work with the receivers some, and split them out wide like the Pats do Gronk, and we can work some of that in. But I think it's an average grade for some average play. The kicking field goals has been rough. Was proud to see Rodrigo Blankenship finally step up this past weekend. He was having a little bit of a rough go with it there. Missed a couple easy ones early, but he hit that 45-yarder this weekend, and plenty of leg, hit 2 more. And I think he's finally shed his Rex Specs Rodrigo name. He caught a lot of crap for that earlier in the year. I felt kind of bad for the kid. Little known fact, I used to have some Rex Specs too when I was a kid, playing sports as a really young kid, and then I grew up and got contacts because those were dumb. But can't make fun of the guy because he has trouble seeing or whatever the case is. But I'm excited about this kid. I hope he steps up and cements that he is the kicker for Georgia for the next 3 years, and he does a good job and holds the job down, because I think the kicking game is important, as I've said earlier on the show. In previous shows. So, Collier, what do you think the special teams group is right now?
Yeah, so I was not nearly as nice as you were. I gave the special teams group a D. I've been really upset with them, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier in the show when you were talking about how Alabama has 11 touchdowns off defense or special teams. I think that's one of the many areas that really separates Alabama from a team like Georgia at this point, is that our special teams is a liability instead of an asset. You don't see us really turning that into a weapon of any sort. We're not getting good returns. We're not able to kick more than a 45-yard field goal. I think that was the longest one of the year for us, and hasn't really even been close. And then, like you said, just the stupid things we've done on kickoff return, the first play of the game. I saw a video replaying it back. We had 8 guys to the left, from the left hash to the sideline.
Wow.
And when you only have 3 guys on the rest of the field, no wonder he took it back all the way inside the 5 on that kickoff. So I gave them a D. And as far as the kicking game goes, if you just look at other teams, especially like the teams in the top 5, kicking isn't really that much of an uncertainty. You know, we always joke about college kickers and how they pretty much all suck, but I mean, if you look at Alabama, they've kind of figured it out now. And so if other teams like Ohio State, they don't have to worry about whether they can make a 35-yard field goal. And that's just frustrating because if you look at, I mean, I'm sure there's at least 5 guys on UGA's club soccer team who could go in and kick a 35-yard field goal. It's really not that difficult, especially when you've been playing soccer your whole life. So I'm hoping after seeing Rodrigo Blankenship go 3 for 3 on Saturday and hit a 45-yarder with some room to spare, maybe he'll turn a corner. He doesn't have to be anything crazy, but we should be able to hit 45-yard field goals pretty consistently. You know, we shouldn't have to punt when we're on our opponent's 40-yard line. You know, we should at least feel like we have a shot. You know, so I would just give them a D, and even the punting situation's been pretty bad too. So we'll just see. I just have been pretty upset. That's been pretty fired up. Pretty angry about the special teams.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, like I said earlier, after you bring in a special teams coordinator, something Mark Richt hasn't had at Georgia, or hadn't had in his time there, and, you know, then it looks as bad as it does. You know, it almost seems like, you know, Mark Richt had the idea, right? Just do it yourself and hope it turns out okay, which I hate to say, but I don't think that's the right approach at all. I do think special teams will improve. I think that's something they're going to talk about and I think work on in this off week. But, you know, it's just kind of been a disappointment. I thought that'd be an asset for us, especially with the explosive players we have back there. And, you know, just as a whole, you know, looking at this team as a whole, we're going to, you know, kind of widen our approach here. You know, Collier, we've graded each position group, graded the units as a whole. So this team as a whole, you know, giving the coaches and what they've done, and, you know, just the team as a whole, everybody involved, you know, the team and, you know, all its parts. What grade are you going to give this team, you know, at the midpoint? What's their final midterm grade, if you will?
I would give them a C+, I'd have to say. I know some people might be upset. Some people probably think it's too high. Some people probably think it's too low. A lot of different opinions about where this team's at right now, but I really expected them to be about 5-2 at this point. If I was being honest with myself, you know, expecting 2 losses out of the North Carolina, Tennessee, Ole Miss games. And that's what we got, but we also had the unexpected loss to Vanderbilt. And then a few games that have been way too close, like Nicholls State and then the Missouri game. So I give them a C+. Doing a few things right on offense with just the quarterback's position's been solid, using tight ends. And then on the defensive side, really our linebackers and our secondary are holding it down. But then you see areas like the offensive line, our running game being subpar for what we're used to, and then special teams being dumpster fire. So I give him a C+. You know, it's been an interesting first year for Kirby Smart. You know, I really think you can't really judge a coach too much as long as he doesn't do anything crazy until his 3rd year. You know, once he starts really getting guys in the system who he has recruited himself and they've matured enough. So, I mean, as long as we don't see some like insane regression over the next half of the season, I mean, I'd be pleased with Kirby Smart's performance. I would give him maybe a B-. Thus far, he's had a few little coaching gaffes here and there on just like calling timeouts and stuff. But as a whole, I like the tenacity he brings to the sideline. You know, seeing him jump up and down a lot, just getting really into it. And I've been happy. I mean, some people are going to be jumping, having a lot of hot takes about, Richt would be, you know, better record right now. He'd at least get us 9-10 wins. But, you know, a lot of this falls still on Mark Richt. You know, Kirby Smart's doing the best with what he can do. If you look at, like, who's really been our bright spots, like, on offense, you could argue that, like, the freshman class has been the best class on offense. You have Eason, Nada, Ridley, Brian Harrion have been, like, some of our best players. And none of them were, like, truly recruited by Mark Richt. They were a little bit, but Kirby Smart's ultimately the man that brought them into our team. And then you look at, just as far as, like, the juniors and seniors, like, I can name you one senior who was not a graduate transfer who's starting on Georgia right now, and that's Lorenzo Carter. So a lot of it still falls on Richt, and I can't really say one way or another if Kirby Smart's been good or bad, at least maybe until the end of next year. You can't really make a final judgment. I think it's going to take some time.
Yeah, definitely. I had a video about I saw it put on Twitter. It was this guy who was, just livid after the Vandy game. Check my Twitter page if you want to see that, or check the Twitter page of the show at 953_highlight if you want to see that. But if you check that out, he makes a lot of good points, valid points. I agree with him, but I disagree in one facet. Fun fact, it's the same guy who made the Florida video last year after we had that gaffe there and started for Ton Bowden and didn't do anything he was good at in the game offensively. So he makes good points, I think. He does it in kind of a funny and eccentric way, but he makes good points. But he says he hasn't seen any improvement in this team, and that's 100% false. I've seen improvement in Jacob Eason. I've seen the defense get, maybe not take huge drastic steps, but I have seen them take steps in the right direction. The offensive line has regressed from week 1, but has been shaky, but can't say there's much improvement there. The defensive line has gotten better in rushing the passer and even stepping up, stopping the run. They gave up 10 yards per rush against North Carolina in week 1, and that average has come down. So there has been improvement, little subtle improvements, yes, but improvements nonetheless. So my overall grade for this team, and once again, a disclaimer, I promise that Collier and I did not do this together. I have an alibi, I promise, if you want to hear it. But I'm going to give them a C+ as well. I think we're probably a step back from where I thought we'd be at this year. I thought that, North Carolina game was kind of a toss-up. I thought 3 losses were possible and not probable. I thought that, we'd win the North Carolina game, and Ole Miss or Tennessee would be one of the ones we drop. I thought we could drop both, but I was looking, I thought we might could be 6-1 going into the Florida game. Definitely thought of, 5-2 was a sure thing, and 4-3 was, something that, a reality we didn't want to talk about because we didn't think it was going to happen, especially after winning the North Carolina game. But, this setback this last week against Vanderbilt, obviously not good for the team. And it's good to have a bye after that loss to really try and right the ship, if you will, for Kirby Smart. So, looking at what Kirby Smart's gonna be doing the next couple years, I don't think it's fair to judge him right now either. People say, "Oh, Richt would have been better." I don't know how much better Mark Richt would have been with this team, to be completely honest with you. But I think the one thing that we can do, I think if you're Georgia, you gotta practice Kaizen. And something my middle school principal used to always preach. Every teacher in middle school had this sign. It's a Japanese, in Japanese writing, it's a Japanese phrase, Kaizen. It means continuous improvement. And I think that's what Georgia's really got to strive to do this year and in the off season and, going into next year. Just keep getting better every snap, every play, every down, get better. Do something, better than you did at the previous play or, the previous time you did it. Work, get guys involved. O-lines, just got to keep improving, keep doing things that you do. We've talked about that before. Defensive line, get pressure on other teams' quarterbacks. Quarterbacks got to make plays. Receivers got to focus on making plays. Just catch the football. My thing is, look at the Atlanta Falcons. People had major questions about Dan Quinn. A lot of people had reservations even about Dan Quinn coming into this season after last year. The super, super hot start. Then the fire just kind of went away. They fell off at the end of the year. People questioning Dan Quinn, is he the guy? Can he get it done? Blah, 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 blah. But, even though we're kind of in the same position, I'll say, as we were last year with the Falcons, hot start, this team is clearly better than last year. Wouldn't you say so, Collier?
Oh, 100%. You saw a team yesterday who was able to go into Seattle and compete with them, and it just really showed me something we hadn't really seen with the Falcons. And going forward, I really think that they can go on the road and compete with any team. And some people would argue that they were the better team in that game yesterday. There was that botched pass interference call at the end. Might not have won even if we got that call, but it certainly puts us in a position to win. Only had to move the ball about 15 more yards before setting up for a field goal. But the Falcons team is a lot better than I thought they were going to be going into the year, and it just really proves all the people wrong who make these quick judgments after a coach's first year. Can't really. I just think it's stupid. You got to stick with a guy for at least 2 years before you can really make a judgment. Ideally 3.
Yeah, definitely. Butch Jones said takes 7 years to build a program, and if Tennessee's going to give Butch Jones 7 years, I think in all fairness, we can give Kirby Smart 3 years to show us that he can turn this program into a nationally relevant team. Not saying we're going to be in the playoff in 3 years. Not saying we're going to, do anything crazy, win a title, or even win the SEC in 3 years. Not even going to make that claim. But we can be a top 25 team consistently. We can go out. We can beat the teams down that we should beat down. We can compete with the top tiers, the Alabamas, the LSUs, the teams of that nature. So I think, just look at Dan Quinn and the Falcons. Matt Ryan's MVP candidate. Offense looks amazing. The defense is, bend but don't break. And so if you look at I think Kirby Smart and Dan Quinn, don't do a lot of things the same, but I do think their mentality is sort of ssimilar with, hard-nosed, tough football, the way they coach, the way they, go about the game. Those guys are going to talk in the offseason. I can almost guarantee it, being, in the same state and, just kind of having that relationship there as the two biggest football, teams in the state, arguably. So those guys are going to talk in the offseason. I can almost guarantee it. And, Dan Quinn's going to give a little wisdom to the young Kirby Smart, I think. But, the improvement from year 1 to year 2 for head coaches who are good head coaches like I think Kirby Smart is going to be drastic. And so I think, we may be in the same situation next year. We may be at this point talking again next year, and Georgia is, maybe only 1 game better. They've lost 2 games. But we'll be sitting here saying, but don't they look so much better?
Yeah, and I think even next year, you got to go into the season hoping that we can win the SEC East. I think that's a very realistic goal for his sophomore season as a coach. The SEC East still won't be this powerhouse next year. So I think that's a realistic goal. I mean, can't lose sight of what we can still accomplish the rest of this season. Potentially maybe go 8-4. I think would still be a great end to the year and have a solid bowl showing. But definitely your goal for the next year should be the SEC East, and I don't think that's too crazy or out there to really think that we're going to do that.
Yeah, definitely. But all these people who are ready to give up on Kirby Smart, give him time. I think, like you said, it's really unfair to judge a coach as his overall progress in year 1. Almost unfair to judge him in year 2, at the end of year 2. But I think you will see improvements next year. I think as with the Falcons, you will see improvements, and you can. At this point, we can sit here and say, this Georgia team right now is better than we were the Georgia team last year. Even if the records are identical, a lot of the same guys are playing, things of that nature. You'll be able to say this team is better, and I think that's the one thing you got to hang your hat on. And if you can say that, and if you say that, at the midway, at the midway point or at the end even of every season, this team is better than the team last year. I think a point will come where you'll be saying it, and you'll look around and you'll be sitting in, the college football playoff. And at the end of the year, you'll say, this team this year is better than that team last year, and you'll do it, and you'll hold a trophy. At the end of the year, you'll hold the national championship trophy. And I think that's the goal. And I think, it happens quicker for some than others. Nick Saban's a special case. We can't expect just because he's a Nick Saban offshoot that he'll be Nick Saban. Nick Saban's a special case. Nick Saban is Nick Saban, and you can't hold anyone else to that standard of Nick Saban, because Nick Saban is Nick Saban, and he's like I said, he's a special case, and he's one of the greats because of what he can do, the magic he can do. So, I'm looking forward to the improvement this year and even next year from Kirby Smart with the recruiting class, getting Jacob Eason in there, more ready to play, and just ready, having him ready to make plays and having other guys step up and make plays as well. So it'll be interesting going forward. So we're going to grab one more quick break here. Collier's probably got to head out to class. I'll give you guys one last tidbit after a break. But before we go, thanks for coming in, Collier. It was a joy having you, hashing out Georgia football, giving them their midterm grades. Get to be critical on someone else, like teachers were critical on me at midterm. Made me feel a little bit better. And, just always a good time having you here. So look forward to having you back. Next week I'll be hashing out the Florida game, keys to the game. I'm going to try to have maybe Collier back next week, or try to get someone in here to talk the Georgia-Florida game with me in here at least. So I'm looking forward to it. But thanks again, Collier, and I'm going to take one more quick break. I'll be back, talk a little bit of AP poll, and then that'll be about all the time we'll have. But we're going to have some AWOL Nation coming at you guys with Sale. So stick around, and I'll be right back for the last segment.
Did you hear? You're listening to WGUR 95.3 The Noise.
What's up, guys? It's your Monday Morning Sports Junkie, Isaiah Smith. I am back with one last quick segment here. It's around 8:55, so I got a few minutes, but I always want to run through pick 'em with you guys. Once again, thanks to Collier for coming out this morning, getting up early and being with us to help grade the Dawgs, give them their midterm grades. And also, if you want to check us out on social media, we're on Periscope. Whole show has been streamed on Periscope, so you can check that out. at 953_highlight. Look for us on Twitter as well. You can watch the Periscope broadcast there or actually on the app. So week 9 for college football pick'em. Going to run through this really quickly. Don't have a lot of time. So Louisville, NC State. Think NC State's going to keep it close, but Lamar Jackson Cardinals are too good. They're going to win that one 42-21, I think. TCU, West Virginia, Big 12 matchup. West Virginia, scores points, doesn't play a lot of defense. I think Gary Patterson's team is going to escape 35-38. They're going to top the Mountaineers. Then Ole Miss, LSU. LSU, they're going to put up a good fight. Ed Orgeron has his team playing very, very well right now, I think. But Chad Kelly, the Ole Miss Rebels, they're very good defensively. Got the Land Shark defense, also a very good unit. I think Ole Miss's group is going to be a little too much for LSU, and they're going to win this one 38-28. Chad Kelly's going to, score a couple late touchdowns to give them a good victory margin, but it'll be a closer game than it appears to be. Arkansas versus Auburn. Auburn, very good defensively. Offensively, well, we've hashed that out before. Arkansas is a very good football team. I think I tweeted earlier that they're my favorite team that's, a step or two away from contending. Just the way they play with Brett Bielema and their style. It's not always ugly, or it's not always pretty, rather. Sometimes it's ugly. Some people think it's ugly. I said I'm going to stop calling their style of football ugly. It's beautiful in its own way. Arkansas is, Arkansas is the girl that you went to school with that everybody, she's got a good personality. That's Arkansas. It's got a good personality, and I'm taking the Razorbacks and their good personality to beat the Auburn Tigers 31-28 this weekend. Then Wisconsin, Iowa. Iowa, the Kardashians of college football. If you follow, I believe Colin Cowherd, they're famous and they get all this recognition, but what have they done? You haven't beat anyone, and I think Wisconsin's going to cement that and show that how empty of a team they are up there in Iowa. They're going to roll over the Hawkeyes 34-16, and then Oklahoma, Texas Tech, another Big 12 showdown. I got Texas Tech, in the high-powered offense pulling the upset. They're going to stun the Sooners in a shootout, 48-42. Then BYU, Boise State, the Friday night matchup. BYU, I think they're going to take down Boise State 45-42 in a matchup of irrelevance out west, I think. And then A&M versus Alabama, the game of the weekend. The game everyone's hoping to see, the heavyweight fight. I'm hoping for 5, 6, 7 overtimes in this one. Want them to keep playing forever. Probably want them to keep playing all night, just because that the heavyweight fight potential that this thing has. But Alabama, they're playing on another level. Even though A&M does have Trevor Knight, does have the offense, good defense. The Alabama killer, quote unquote Alabama killer, Saban's kryptonite, if you will, and Trevor Knight. But I'm going to take the Crimson Tide in this one, 42-38, in a close one. I think they'll just be a little too much for A&M. And then one last little bit here, AP poll, going to talk that a little bit. AP poll and Heisman Watch. AP poll thought they got it right this week, did a pretty good job. I'm off my schneid about teams. Georgia being in there after, have beaten more top 25 teams than some of these other groups after, we got Vanderbilt just kicked the crap out of us, so I'm done with that. But the only problem I have is Michigan and Clemson. There's no reason to move Michigan above Clemson. Michigan didn't even play anyone. Tennessee, they actually lost, and they didn't get penalized from around the 9 spot, I believe, 8 or 9. They were there before the A&M game, and they stayed there after the A&M game. So how can you penalize Clemson for winning? That's beyond me. Come on, guys. What do you have to do to be able to vote in this poll? That's my question. And then Heisman Watch, top 5 for me. JT Barrett, number 1, I think, after, leading his team to the victory this weekend. Lamar Jackson, number 2, I think. But these guys are easily interchangeable. Almost a 1 and 1A type situation there. Then Deshaun Watson, in the 3rd spot. Greg Ward, even though his team has suffered a loss, I think he's still there, still a dynamic playmaker. And if Houston gets into the playoff or, make some noise there, it'll be because of him and his play, I believe. And then, my last spot, couldn't decide on 2 guys, so I'm going to stick them both there. Jake Browning, quarterback from Washington, has really been putting up some numbers up there out in the Pac-12 and has been making plays for that group. Very impressed, actually, with what he's been doing, even though, the strength of schedule for them is not the toughest, hasn't been, crazy difficult, but I have been, impressed with the numbers he's putting up. Then Jabril Peppers, kind of the do-it-all guy from Michigan, runs a Wildcat form, plays linebacker, plays safety. I think if you put his hand in the dirt, he can rush the passer and stop the run, and he could also probably block for the quarterback if he had to. And, I'm pretty sure he can catch passes. So he can literally, I think, play any position on the football field. So Jabril Peppers, kind of a do-it-all type player, I think, is a special type of player that, you only see a few times in a generation, maybe even a lifetime. So, really looking forward to seeing what he can do, and maybe, he's kind of a dark horse at this point just because he doesn't get the offensive numbers that some of these other guys will get and have the impact, I guess, that some of these other guys have. But he's still a special player, and I think he's very worthy of getting the invite, I think, to New York if he keeps his level of play up. So that's all we got. Sorry about the quick, swift rundown there. It's almost kind of quick and dirty there, but no worries. Hopefully next week we'll be back. We can get a little bit more into the AP. Maybe we'll have some shake-up in the polls. We're only a few weeks away from the first college football playoff poll, so really looking forward to that. Get to talk. We're probably going to spend a lot of a show talking that. If you want to check us on Twitter at 953_highlight, check us there. You can see, all the graphics, my show pick, my picks for the week, my top 10. I believe I'll have the Heisman picks up, my Heisman front runners up there as well. Also going to have the report card for the Dawgs up there if you want to check that out. If you have any questions or anything you just want to hear us talk about on the show, tweet me. Once again, it's at 953_highlight. Looking forward to being back with you guys next week. So I'm going to get ready and head to class. Once again, thanks for listening, everybody. It's been fun talking with you guys. Thanks again to Collier for coming out this morning. And I'm really looking forward to this weekend of college football. We got Deep Roots this weekend in Milledgeville, so that'll always be fun. Going to impact the football watching a little bit, but hopefully I'll get to sit down at a restaurant or somewhere and catch a few games. So have a good week. Happy Monday, and this is your Monday Morning Sports Junkie signing off. Go Dogs as always, and have a great week.
You're listening to WGUR 95.3 The Noise. The best music you'll find here, there, anywhere. WGUR 95.3 The Noise.
Every second, every minute, man, I swear that she can get it. Say if you a bad chick, put your hands up high, hands up high, hands up high. Tell them dim the lights.